Rain hammered the windshield of the Toyota Camry as Rebecca Morrison pulled onto the shoulder of I-25. 18 years old, $347 in her checking account. A canvas duffel bag with everything she owned shoved into the back seat, and a brass key that weighed nothing but felt like an anchor. She cut the engine, stared at the key resting in her palm. Rust, old metal, the kind of thing you'd find in an estate sale bin for $2. Except this one came with 20 acres of Montana wilderness and a father who'd looked at her like a failed investment. The rain turned Denver into gray streaks behind her. Ahead, nothing but highway and the kind of silence that made you think too much. Her phone buzzed. 12 missed calls, all from the same number, not answering. Because what was there to say? Jonathan Whitmore had made his choice. Executive position at the pharmaceutical company he ran. 6-figure salary right out of college. A life mapped out in boardrooms and quarterly earnings reports. All she had to do was give up everything that mattered. The phone buzzed again. She powered it off. 6 hours earlier, the study in the Whitmore estate overlooking Cherry Creek, floor-to-ceiling windows. Mahogany desk that probably cost more than most people's cars. Jonathan stood behind it like a CEO addressing shareholders, which, basically, he was. Donna lingered by the fireplace. Stepmother, 6 years of polite distance and careful smiles. But today something different flickered across her face when Rebecca walked in. Something that looked almost like, "What? Regret?" No, couldn't be. Jonathan didn't offer her a seat. "You're 18 now." Rebecca shifted the duffel bag on her shoulder. "Yeah, happy birthday to me." This isn't a joke. His voice had that clipped boardroom tone. The one that made junior executives sweat. "I've offered you a guaranteed future. Director of Public Relations. Starting salary $150,000. Stock options. Full benefits. I don't want to work in pharmaceuticals." "What you want?" He stopped, breathed through his nose. "What you want is irrelevant. You're a Whitmore. That comes with responsibilities. I'm a Morrison." The words came out harder than she intended. "Mom's name. Remember her?" Donna's wine glass paused halfway to her lips. Jonathan's jaw tightened. "Your mother would have wanted you to be practical." "My mother wanted me to study wildlife biology. We talked about it. Before she made a series of poor decisions that led to her death cold. Surgical. I won't let you follow that path." The air went out of the room. Rebecca felt her hands shake, forced them still. "You don't get to rewrite what happened. I get to decide whether I'm funding your mistakes." He picked up a manila envelope from the desk, slid it across the polished surface. It stopped at the edge. "Your grandfather's cabin. Montana. The will finally cleared probate. She didn't reach for it. It's yours, as of today." Legally, completely, his voice dropped. Quieter, which somehow made it worse. Along with the trust fund dissolution, credit card cancellation, phone plan termination. "You are no longer a dependent of this household." Donna set her glass down. "Jonathan, this is business." He didn't look at his wife, kept his eyes locked on Rebecca. "You made your choice. Environmental science at a state school, throwing away every advantage you've been given. So, here's what you get instead." The envelope sat between them like evidence at a crime scene. "Take it, or don't. Either way, you're not my responsibility anymore." Rebecca picked up the envelope. Heavy, something metal inside rattled. She turned, walked toward the door. "You'll come back." Jonathan's voice followed her. "When you realize how the world actually works, when reality sets in, you'll come back, and we'll discuss terms." She stopped at the threshold, didn't turn around. "No, I won't," which sounded braver than she felt. The highway stretched west, mountains rising like teeth at the sky. Rebecca drove with the radio off because music felt wrong and silence felt worse. Her phone, still powered down, sitting in the cup holder like a bomb. She thought about Tom Morrison, grandfather, the man who taught her to read animal tracks in the dirt, who'd shown her how to find north without a compass, who died when she was 14 and left her a cab she'd visited exactly twice, summer up to 2022. She was 12. The cabin sat at the end of a dirt road that turned into mud when it rained. Timber frame, stone chimney, windows that looked out over pine forests that went on forever. Tom had been different then, younger. Before the cancer that would kill him 2 years later started eating through his lungs, he'd taken her hiking, showed her where the elk came down from the high country in winter, where the bear trails crossed the creek. Most people only see the surface. He'd pointed at a fallen log. Moss-covered, rotting, they miss what's underneath. She'd crouched down, lifted the edge. A whole ecosystem, beetles, grubs, salamanders. The world works like that too, he'd smiled. That quiet smile he had. Everyone sees the fresh paint. Nobody checks the foundation. She'd asked him what he meant. He'd just squeezed her shoulder. "You'll understand when you need to now." Driving through Wyoming Badlands, turning purple in the late afternoon light, she wondered if this was what he'd meant. The envelope sat on the passenger seat. She'd opened it at a gas station outside Cheyenne. Brass key, deed to 20 acres. Property tax receipt paid through 2027. And a handwritten note on yellowed paper for Rebecca. When you're ready to see what's underneath, that was it. No explanation, no instructions. Just that. She'd called the one person who might actually answer Stephanie Walsh. Best friend since sophomore year. The only person from her old life who'd texted after the news broke that she'd been cut off. Holy shit. He actually did it? Yeah, he actually did it. What are you going to do? Rebecca had watched sagebrush blow across the gas station parking lot. Drive to Montana. Figure it out from there. You need money? I've got like $200 saved. Keep it. I'll be okay, Becca. You don't have to do this alone, but she did, because asking for help felt like admitting Jonathan was right. The cabin appeared just after sunset. Exactly where she remembered. Except worse. So much worse. The roof sagged in the middle like a broken spine. Half the windows were cracked. Ivy had swallowed the north wall. The porch steps looked like kindling waiting for a match. She parked. Got out, stood in the sudden mountain silence. Stars overhead, millions of them. The kind you never saw in Denver, and something else. Fresh tire tracks in the mud. Deep ones. Not from her Camry, her pulse kicked up. She walked to the front door, tested the knob, locked. The key slid in smooth. Too smooth for a lock that should have been rusted shut after 4 years. Someone had used it recently. The door swung open on hinges that didn't squeak. Also wrong inside. Dust, cobwebs, furniture covered in tarps. But also, footprints in the dust. Recent ones. Boot treads, multiple sets. Her stomach dropped. She backed out. Pulled her phone from her pocket, still off. She powered it on, waited for signal, 1 bar. Flickering. A voice cut through the trees. You planning to go in there? She spun, dropped the phone, caught it, heart hammering. A man stood at the edge of the clearing, 60s. Weathered face, flannel shirt. Hands raised in a calm-down gesture. Easy, didn't mean to spook you. Kenneth Palmer. I live about 3 miles down the ridge. She forced her breathing to slow. Rebecca Morrison, figured. He lowered his hands. Stepped closer into the porch light she hadn't realized was on. You look like Tom. Same eyes, you knew my grandfather? Everyone around here knew Tom. Good man. Sorry for your loss. He glanced at the cabin, back at her. But I gotta ask. You sure you're supposed to be here right now? It's my property. Deed transferred this morning. Yeah, that's what worries me. He shifted his weight. Had some folks up here last week. Fancy SUVs. Denver plates. They were poking around, measuring, taking pictures. Who were they? Said they were from some structural assessment company. Had a whole story about foundation integrity, safety concerns. But, he paused. They didn't look like building inspectors to me. What did they look like? Private security. The kind that carries under their jackets. His eyes held hers. They tried the doors. Couldn't get in. That's some serious steel under the wood paneling. Your grandfather installed it, maybe. 6 years back? Right before he got sick, Rebecca's mind raced. Did they say anything else? Just that they'd be back, with equipment. To properly assess the structure, he made air quotes, which sounded like code for something else entirely. She looked at the cabin, at the door that opened too smoothly, at the lock that should have been seized. Thank you for telling me. You need anything. I'm the only house with lights visible from the ridge road. Can't miss it. He tipped his head, started to leave, stopped. One more thing. Those men, they mentioned your father by name, ice down her spine, Jonathan Whitmore. They said he'd sent them, inside. Rebecca locked the door, both deadbolts, tested them twice. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Jonathan had handed her the cabin yesterday, and sent men here last week. Which meant what? That he'd known the deed was about to transfer. Had tried to get in before she could. Before she could what? Find something? She pulled at her boof. 1 bar still. Dialed. Stephanie picked up on the first ring. You there? Yeah. But Steph, something's wrong. Wrong how? People were here, before me, looking for something. What people? I don't know. But she walked through the cabin, living room, kitchen, everything covered in dust and neglect. My dad sent them. Silence on the line. Then, Becca, what exactly did your grandfather do? Like, for work? He was, I don't know, retired FBI, Financial Crimes Division? He never talked about it much, and he left you a cabin in the middle of nowhere, right after cutting you off from the family fortune. The timing is suspicious as hell. Yeah, keyboard clicking in the background. Give me the name of that assessment company, Kenneth didn't say. Just that they seemed fake. Okay. Different approach. I'm going to search property records. See who's been accessing your deed information. More clicking. This might take a while. I've got time. You okay? Like, actually okay? Rebecca looked around the cabin. at the shadows in corners, at the dust motes drifting through flashlight beams. I'm fine, liar, yeah. Probably. Call me if anything weird happens. Weirder than it already is? You know what I mean. And Becca? Stephanie's voice softened. Your mom would be proud. That you didn't back down, Rebecca's throat tightened. Thanks, she ended the call. Stood in the silence, Mom Sarah Morrison, PhD in molecular biology. The smartest person Rebecca had ever known, who died 6 years ago from what the police called suicide by prescription medication. Except Sarah had hated pills. Wouldn't take aspirin for a headache. Had lectured Rebecca about the dangers of over-medication since she was old enough to understand. And Jonathan had married Donna 3 months later. 3 months, Rebecca had been 12. Numb with grief. She'd accepted the timeline because what choice did she have? Adults made decisions. Children adapted. But now, standing in her grandfather's cabin that someone had tried to break into, that Jonathan had sent men to before she could arrive. Now she wondered what else she'd accepted without questioning. She started searching, kitchen first. Cabinets empty except for mouse droppings. Drawers stuck, counters warped from water damaged. Nothing living room, furniture old but intact, couch sagging, rocking chair, coffee table with ring stains, nothing, bedroom, bed frame, no mattress. Closet full of moth-eaten flannel shirts that still smelled like Tom's cologne. She pressed her face into one. Breathed in. Old Spice and gun oil and something else. Something she couldn't name. Grief hit like a physical thing. She let it come. Let herself cry. Standing in a dead man's closet at the edge of the world with nothing and no one. Have you ever had everything taken away on your 18th birthday? The question floated through her mind. Not rhetorical. Real. She wiped her eyes. Pulled herself together. Because crying didn't find answers, she moved to the main room. Started over. This time looking not for what was there, but for what should be there and wasn't. Tom had been meticulous. Organized. FBI training. Everything in its place. But this cabin felt, deliberately, stripped like someone had removed everything important, or hide it. She thought about his words. The fresh paint. The foundation. Her eyes went to the gun cabinet in the corner. Heavy oak. Built into the wall. She walked over. Tried the door, locked it. She looked at the brass key in her hand. Wrong size. This lock needed something smaller. She searched. Drawers, shelves, under furniture, nothing. She sat on the floor, stared at the cabinet, think. Where would Tom hide a key he wanted her to find, not random? Not obvious, somewhere that required. What? Knowledge? Memory? She closed her eyes, pictured summers here, hiking, tracking, learning the hunting knife. He'd given her a knife when she was 10, taught her to carve, to whittle. They'd spent hours on the porch making. What? Animals mostly. Bears, elk, wolves. She stood, went to the mantel above the fireplace. There a carved wolf, about 6 inches tall, pine wood, stained dark she'd made it, or Tom had helped. She couldn't remember which. She picked it up, turned it over. The base had a small circular indentation. Her heart rate picked up. She pressed. Nothing twisted, nothing pulled. The base slid off, inside. A hollow cavity and a small silver key. Her hands shook as she took it, walked back to the gun cabinet. Slid the key in, it turned. The cabinet door opened. No guns, no ammunition. But the back panel, cheap plywood, didn't match the rest of the cabinet. She pressed on it, it flexed. She found the edge. Pried, the panel came away. Behind it, darkness. She pulled out her phone, used the flashlight, a space, maybe 3 feet deep. Built into the wall and inside, a metal trapdoor in the floor. The trapdoor had a recessed handle. Rebecca pulled. It opened with a hydraulic hiss. Stairs. Concrete. Leading down into absolute black. Her mouth went dry. This was insane. Secret rooms in cabins. This was movie stuff. Not real life, except. Here it was. She descended. 1 step. 2. Her phone light bouncing off concrete walls at the bottom. A room. Small, maybe 10 by 10 feet and packed with. Everything. A metal gun safe in the corner. Not huge. Probably held rifles. But it was there. A filing cabinet. 4 drawers. Industrial gray. A desk. Cheap particle board. But functional. And a camping lamp hanging from a hook. She found the switch. LED light flooded the space. No windows. No ventilation except a small vent near the ceiling. The air smelled dry, preserved, like someone had sealed this place deliberately. She moved to the filing cabinet, pulled the top drawer. Full of files. Alphabetically organized. She grabbed one at random, tab read. Whitemore Pharma, Rightral Memo 2015. Her blood went cold. She opened it, dront outs, emails. Spreadsheet subject line on the first email. WT47 trial data Q2 results. She scanned the text. Medical terminology. Patient numbers. Adverse events 14 deaths. She flipped to the next page. Another email. Per our discussion. The trial continues under amended protocol. Informed consent forms have been adjusted to minimize legal exposure. Dated March 2016. 2 months before her mother died, Rebecca sat. Her legs wouldn't hold her. Tom hadn't left her a cabin. He'd left her evidence. She opened the second drawer. More files, more emails. Bank statements showing wire transfers to offshore accounts. Contracts with medical facilities in rural Montana and Wyoming. All of it pointing to Whitmore Pharmaceutical Solutions, the company her father ran. No, Jonathan couldn't. He wouldn't, would he? She pulled out her phone. No signal down here, right, underground. Of course, she grabbed files at random, shoved them into her duffel bag. Had to see these, had to read every word. But not here, not now, because someone had tried to get into this cabin last week, and whoever it was, they'd be back. She climbed the stairs, closed the trapdoor, replaced the panel, locked the cabinet, put the carved wolf back on the mantel, made everything look untouched, then walked outside into mountain air that tasted like pine and stone and the kind of cold that cleared your head. Kenneth Palmer's house glowed 3 miles down the ridge. She got in her car, started driving. Kenneth answered the door in slippers and reading glasses. A golden retriever pushed past him, sniffed Rebecca's hands, wagged easy. Duke. Kenneth pushed the dog back. Rebecca, what's wrong? Can I use your phone? Mine has no signal, course. Come in, the house was warm. Wood stove crackling, lived in but tidy. Kenneth pointed to a landline on the kitchen counter. Help yourself. I'll make coffee, she dialed Stephanie. Becca? Different number. You okay? No, I found Steph. I found files. About my dad's company. What kind of files? The kind that show they've been testing drugs on people without proper consent. Silence then. Holy shit, yeah. What are you going to do? I don't know. I need to copy everything. But I can't stay at the cabin. It's not safe. Where are you now? Neighbor's house. He seems safe, I think. You think? I don't know anything anymore. Her voice cracked. She forced it steady. Can you help me? With the digital stuff? If I scan documents? Of course. But Becca, if these files are real, if they show what you think they show, you're not just going against your dad, I know. You're going against a pharmaceutical company. With lawyers. And money. And, probably worse. I know, just be careful, okay? Kenneth set a mug of coffee in front of her. She nodded. Thanks, I will. I'll call you tomorrow. She hung up, wrapped her hands around the mug, felt the heat. Kenneth sat across from her at the kitchen table. Didn't ask questions, just waited. Finally, my grandfather, did he ever talk to you? About anything unusual? Tom kept to himself mostly. But Kenneth scratched Duke behind the ears. About a year before he died. He asked me something strange. What? He said, if anything ever happened to him, if his granddaughter ever showed up, I should tell her to look where the foundation meets the walls. Rebecca's hands went still on the mug, he said that? Word for word, didn't explain. But Tom wasn't the kind of man who said things without reason, did he seem? Scared? Worried? He seemed. Determined, Kenneth met her eyes. Like a man running out of time to finish something important. Rebecca thought about the files. About 14 dead patients. About clinical trials and amended consent forms. About her mother, who'd worked in R&D at Whitmore Pharma. Who died 2 months after someone wrote that email about legal exposure. She stood. Thank you. For the coffee. And the phone, you're not going back to the cabin tonight. No, good. Because I saw headlights on the Ridge Road about an hour ago. Slow. Like they were looking for something. Her stomach dropped. How many vehicles? 2. SUVs. They turned around eventually. But they'll be back. That'd be my guess. She grabbed her bag, if anyone asks. You haven't seen me, Rebecca. You can stay here. Guest room's made up. I can't put you in danger. I'm a 61-year-old man with a dog and a shotgun. Danger and I have an understanding, he smiled. But his eyes stayed serious. Besides, Tom asked me to look out for you. I aim to keep that promise. She felt tears threaten again. Push them back. Okay, just. Tonight, however long you need. The guest room was small, clean. Quilts on the bed that smelled like cedar. Rebecca locked the door, pulled the files from her duffel, spread them on the bed, Stardate reading, WT-47. A new opioid alternative. Synthetic compound designed to manage chronic pain without addiction risk. FDA approval pending. Trial phase 3. 43 patients enrolled across rural Montana and Wyoming. All low income. All with limited access to healthcare. All desperate for pain relief. None of them had signed proper informed consent forms. And 14 of them had died kidney failure, liverdiac arrest, but the death certificates. Rebecca flipped through photocopies. All listed natural causes, existing conditions. Nothing connected to the drug except Tom had collected everything. Medical examiner reports that contradicted the certificates. Toxicology results showing elevated levels of compound markers. Emails between doctors discussing how to code the deaths, and payments, wire transfers from Whitmore Pharma to private medical practices. 500,000, a million, spread across dozens of transactions, Her father's signature on the authorization forms. Jonathan Whitmore, CEO accept. She looked closer. The signature was printed. Not handwritten, and the approval emails. None came from Jonathan's actual email address. They came from an internal account. Chase at Whitmore Pharma, Christopher Hayes, Chief Security Officer. Rebecca's mind raced. She pulled out her phone, still no signal. But she didn't need signal for notes. She typed, Christopher Hayes, Security. Access to CEO accounts? Forging signatures? What nobody knew was that Rebecca's mom had died fighting for the same thing. And her mom, Sarah Morrison, who'd been Director of Research and Development, who would have seen trial data, who would have known. Rebecca grabbed another file, labeled, Morrison Internal Investigation. Her hands shook as she opened it. Memo dated February 2018 from Sarah Morrison. To Jonathan Whitmore subject, immediate cessation of WT-47 trials, Jonathan. I've reviewed the Q4 2017 data. The adverse event rate is unacceptable. We have 14 fatalities that cannot be attributed to pre-existing conditions. I am formally requesting immediate trial suspension pending independent review. I've documented everything and will be filing a report with the FDA if we do not act within 72 hours. Response from Jonathan. Dated 3 days later, Sarah. I understand your concerns. Let's discuss in person before taking any drastic action. I've scheduled a meeting for Friday. Please do not file anything until we've talked. No further emails. Sarah Morrison died April 14, 2018. Meeting never happened. Rebecca closed the file, opened another. Tom's handwritten notes. Sarah gave me copies. Everything. She knew they'd come for her, she said. If anything happens, make sure Becca gets this when she's old enough to be safe from Jonathan's control. I tried to stop her. Tried to convince her to run. But Sarah believed in the system. Believed justice would prevail. She was wrong. Autopsy report says suicide. Morphine overdose. But Sarah never touched opioids. Never. Not even after her surgery 3 years ago, Dr. Marcus Reed signed the death certificate. Same doctor who signed off on 6 of the WT-47 trial deaths. Christopher Hayes was seen at Sarah's apartment the night before. Lobby camera footage. But police never followed up. I couldn't prove it then. But I can document it. For Becca. For when she's ready. The page ended. Rebecca sat on the bed. Her mother hadn't killed herself. She'd been murdered by the same people who'd killed 14 patients. And Tom had known, had spent the last 2 years of his life collecting evidence waiting. For Rebecca to turn 18, to be legally independent, to be safe from Jonathan's authority. She grabbed her duffel, shoved all the files back in, went to the door. Kenneth was in the hallway. Like he'd been listening. You found something, everything. I found everything, and now? Now I need to get these files somewhere safe. And I need to find someone who can help me use them. There's a lawyer in town, Michael Palmer, my son, environmental law mostly. But he knows people. Can I meet him? Tomorrow. First thing, Kenneth paused. Rebecca, whatever this is, whatever you found, you know you can't undo it once you start, right? She thought about her mother. About 14 strangers who'd trusted doctors and died. About Jonathan, who might be a puppet or might be complicit. About Christopher Hayes, who'd built an empire on corpses. When do you choose truth over family? The question felt less like philosophy and more like prophecy. I know, but I have to. Okay then, Kenneth nodded. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start, she tried, but sleep didn't come. Just the faces of 14 people she'd never met. And the ghost of her mother. Waiting for justice that had taken 6 years too long. Morning broke over the ridge like a wound. Red sky bleeding into gray. Rebecca stood at Kenneth's kitchen window with cold coffee and the kind of exhaustion that made your bones ache. Duke pressed his nose against her leg. She scratched behind his ears. Didn't help. Kenneth emerged from his bedroom, showered, dressed. Moving like a man 20 years younger. Michael's expecting us at 9. You eat? Not hungry. Eat anyway. Going to be a long day. He set a plate of scrambled eggs in front of her. Toast. Bacon. The kind of breakfast that felt like kindness in solid form. She picked up a fork. Put it down, Kenneth. What if I'm wrong? What if these files are? I don't know. Misinterpreted, are they? No, then you're not wrong. He poured himself coffee. Sat across from her. Tom Morrison was the most careful man I ever met. FBI taught him to document everything twice. If he left you those files, they're real. She forced herself to eat. Tasted like cardboard. But her stomach needed something. Michael Palmer's office sat above a hardware store in town. Population, maybe 2,000. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone's business, which meant walking in broad daylight was a risk. Kenneth parked in the alley, led her up the back stairs. Michael opened the door before they knocked. 35, athletic build. Sharp eyes that cataloged everything. Lawyer eyes. Dad says you need help. That's understating it. Rebecca stepped inside. The office was small, functional. Law books, filing cabinets, a desk buried under environmental impact reports. Michael gestured to a chair. Coffee, water? Answers. If you've got them, he sat behind his desk. I know who you are, or who you were. Before last night, you saw the news. Everyone saw the news. But Dad called me at 6 this morning, told me you were alive, told me to clear my schedule. He leaned forward. So, what's really happening? Rebecca pulled files from her duffel, set them on his desk. My grandfather spent 2 years documenting pharmaceutical crimes, murder, fraud, falsified trial data. And my father's company is at the center. Michael opened the first file, and his expression shifted. Lawyer mask slipping. These are clinical trial records, WT-47, 14 deaths, all covered up. He kept reading, flipped pages, stopped at an email chain. Christopher Hayes. Your father's security chief. He's the one running it. Not my dad, at least. I don't think my dad knows. You don't think? I'm not sure anymore. Her voice cracked. She steadied it. But my mom knew, and they killed her for it. Michael closed the file, looked at Kenneth. Back at Rebecca, you understand what you're sitting on, right? This isn't just evidence of corporate malfeasance. This is organized murder, federal crimes. Maybe, probably. Criminal conspiracy reaching back years, I know, and you want to. What, go to the police? Can't. They think I'm dead. And if I walk into a police station, someone tips off Christopher before I can get the files secured. FBI then, same problem. He has money. Connections. He'll know I'm coming. Michael tapped his desk, thinking. Lawyer brain working. You need a journalist. Someone with reach. Someone who can't be bought or scared off. You know someone? Maybe. Andrew Sullivan. Used to work for the Times. Went independent after the Purdue expose. He's difficult, but thorough, and he hates pharmaceutical companies with the kind of passion that makes for good investigative journalism. Rebecca felt something loosen in her chest. Hope. Maybe? Can you contact him? I can try, but Sullivan's careful, especially after Purdue tried to sue him into bankruptcy. He'll want verification. Proof the files are real. They're real, I believe you. But he'll need more than your word. Michael pulled out his phone. Let me make some calls? Her phone buzzed, finally had signal. 17 missed calls, all from blocked numbers, and one text from Stephanie. Becca, turn on the news. Now, Rebecca grabbed Kenneth's remote, flipped to local Montana stations, nothing. Tried Denver, there. Breaking news out of rural Montana, where authorities are investigating a tragic cabin fire that claimed the life of 18-year-old Rebecca Morrison. The daughter of pharmaceutical CEO Jonathan Whitmore was reportedly staying at her late grandfather's property when the blaze occurred late last night. Fire marshal suspects faulty propane heating. No foul play suspected at this time. The screen showed her cabin, smoldering, collapsed roof, fire trucks, yellow tape. Kenneth stood, walked to the window, looked toward the ridge. They did it. Actually burned it down. Rebecca couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The eggs threatened to come back up. They think I'm dead. Or they want everyone else to think you're dead. Kenneth turned. Which means you have maybe 12 hours before someone notices no body in the wreckage. Her phone rang. Stephanie, are you seeing this? Yeah, I'm seeing it, Becca. They're saying you died. Your dad just gave a statement. He's crying on camera. Rebecca watched the screen. Jonathan Whitmore, standing outside the Denver estate, face drawn, eyes red, looking every inch the grieving father. My daughter, my beautiful daughter. She was troubled. After her mother's death, she never recovered. I tried. God knows I tried, but she wouldn't accept help. Dot stood beside him, hand on his shoulder. Looking. What? Terrified, not sad. Terrified. I'm turning this off. Wait, there's more. They're saying they found drug paraphernalia in the cabin. That you were using. That the fire started because you fell asleep while... Jesus. While high, Rebecca's vision tunneled. I've never used drugs in my life, I know. But they're building a narrative. Troubled teen, family conflict, substance abuse. Tragic accident. Stephanie's voice dropped. Becca, this is cover-up 101. They're making sure if your body doesn't turn up. Everyone already believes you were unstable. How do you fight back when the world thinks you're dead? The question hung in the air, not rhetorical. Actual, you don't fight back? Not yet? Kenneth's voice cut through. You disappear for real. Until you're ready to come back with proof they can't ignore. Michael held up a hand, phone to his ear. Andrew, it's Michael Palmer. Yeah, Montana. Listen, I've got something. No, not environmental this time. Pharmaceutical. Big. How big? 14 bodies. Big. Pause. She's here now. The witness. And before you ask. Yes. I've seen the files. They're legitimate. Longer pause. Michael's eyes flicked to Rebecca. She can't come to you. There's complications. National news. You'll understand when we talk. Another pause. Salt Lake. 2 days. I'll text you the location. He ended the call. He's interested, but paranoid. Wants to meet somewhere public. Neutral ground. and he wants to see original documents. Not copies, Rebecca nodded. I can do that. There's a problem, though. You're supposed to be dead, which means traveling is going to be challenging. Kenneth shifted. I've got a camper. We can drive. Stay off main roads. They'll be looking for her car, so we leave it here. Take mine. Kenneth's jaw set. I'm retired. Got nothing but time. Michael looked at his father. Something unspoken passed between them. Okay, but you need to be smart. No credit cards, no ATMs, cash only. And Rebecca, you need to change your appearance. She touched her hair. Long, dark, distinctive. How much? Enough that a casual glance doesn't trigger recognition. By noon, she looked different. Hair cut short, dyed blonde. Courtesy of Kenneth's neighbor, who asked no questions and accepted $200 cash. Stephanie had helped remotely, walked Rebecca through setting up encrypted email, burner phone numbers, VPN routing. You're basically going off-grid. Which is smart, but also terrifying. I'm already terrified. Fair. But Becca, listen, I did some digging on Christopher Hayes, and he's not just security. He owns 40% of Whitmore Pharma through shell companies. Your dad is CEO, but Hayes controls the money. Rebecca's stomach dropped. How did you find that? Corporate filings, Delaware registrations. It's all public if you know where to look. But here's the thing. Hayes Medical Consulting LLC. That's his primary holding company. And guess who else gets payments from it? Who? Dr. Marcus Reed. The doctor who signed your mom's death certificate. The world tilted. How much? $500,000. Spread over 6 months after your mom died. Rebecca sat on the edge of the motel bed. Kenneth had rented a room, 2 towns over, paid cash, no ID, Stephanie. What if my dad really doesn't know? Then he's either the world's most oblivious CEO or Christopher is really good at covering tracks. Which do you think? Silence on the line then. I think your mom trusted him, enough to tell him what she found. And either he ignored her, or someone made sure he couldn't act. Rebecca thought about Jonathan, about the way he'd looked at her in that study, like a failed investment, but also, she remembered him before Sarah died, remembered family dinners, laughter, the way he'd read to her before bed. That man wouldn't condone murder. Would he? I need to know. For sure. How? I need to talk to Donna, your stepmother. The one who was just on TV standing next to your father while he lied about your death? Yeah, her, Becca. That's insane, probably. But did you see her face? She wasn't sad. She was scared. Scared of what? That's what I need to find out. Calling Donna required burner phones, routing through 3 different numbers, and timing it for when Jonathan would be at the office. The phone rang 4 times. Click. Hello? Donna's voice. Shaking, it's me. Sharp intake of breath. Rebecca? Oh my God. They said you were. The cabin. The fire. I wasn't there. But someone burned it down, and I need to know if you're part of this. Part of what? I don't. Now, Rebecca, where were you? Somewhere safe. For now, but I have questions, and I need you to tell me the truth. Silence. Then, crying. Soft, broken. I can't. Heal. If he finds out I talked to you. Who? Jonathan? No, not Jonathan. Christopher. Rebecca's pulse jumped. What does Christopher have on you? More crying then. Words tumbling out. My daughter, Emily. From my first marriage. She's at a facility in Wyoming. They say she's there for addiction treatment. But she's not an addict. She never was. Christopher put her there. Said if I didn't cooperate, he'd make sure she never got out. Rebecca closed her eyes, pieces falling into place. How long has he been doing this? 2 years. Since I found out about the trials, I was reviewing financial reports. I saw the payments. Asked Jonathan about them. He didn't know. But Christopher found out I'd been looking. And then, Emily disappeared. Does Jonathan know? About Emily? He thinks she's actually in rehab. Christopher convinced him it was necessary, that I was enabling her. Jonathan trusts Christopher. Completely. He doesn't understand what's really happening. Rebecca's hands shook. Donna, I need you to help me. I can't. If he finds out, I'm going to get Emily out, and then I'm going to destroy Christopher. But I need access to something. Internal emails, server logs, anything that shows Christopher forging Jonathan's approvals. I don't have access to that, but you can get it. You're in the house. You have Jonathan's laptop password. How did you? Because I watched you log into his computer last Christmas when he forgot it at dinner. You said you were checking his calendar. But you knew the password. Long pause. If I do this, if I help you, you'll get Emily out? I promise. Okay. Give me 2 days. I'll get you everything I can. 2 days later. Salt Lake City, Public Library. 3rd floor reading room. Rebecca sat at a corner table, blonde hair tucked under a baseball cap, oversized sunglasses. Looking like a college student cramming for finals, Kenneth waited in the camper 2 blocks away, engine running, just in case Andrew Sullivan arrived at 2 p.m. exactly. 50s, graying hair. weathered face that had seen too many corporate lies, carried a battered leather messenger bag, and looked like he trusted no one, smart man. He sat across from her, didn't introduce himself. "You're younger than I expected, you're older." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Michael vouched for you. That's the only reason I'm here. But I need to see proof before we go further." Rebecca slid a file across the table. "Start with this." He opened it, scanned the first page. Second, his expression shifted. Journalist instincts kicking in. These are internal trial documents. 43 patients. Rural Montana and Wyoming. All low income. All desperate for pain relief. 14 deaths, 14 murders. Covered up as natural causes. He kept reading. Pulled out a notebook. Started writing. "Who compiled this?" "My grandfather, Thomas Morrison, former FBI, Financial Crimes Division. And where is he now?" "Dead. Cancer." 2020. Andrew looked up, eyes sharp. "He died before he could go public. He was waiting for me. To turn 18. To be legally independent." "From who?" "Jonathan Whitmore. My father. CEO of the company behind this." Andrew leaned back, processed. "You're Rebecca Morrison. The girl who died in the cabin fire 2 days ago didn't die. They burned the cabin to destroy evidence and create a narrative that discredits me if I surface. But you didn't die because you'd already found the files and left." "Yes." He studied her. Journalist poker face. "Why should I believe you?" "Because Tom Morrison contacted you in 2018. Said he had information about pharmaceutical crimes, but wouldn't give details. Said it wasn't safe yet." Andrew's expression flickered. "Surprise. How do you know that?" "He wrote about it. In his notes. He trusted you. Said if anything happened to him, I should find you." Silence. Then Andrew pulled out his own file. Thinner, but clearly maintained for years. "Your grandfather sent me a partial data set. March 2018. Just enough to prove something was wrong. But not enough to publish. He said he'd send the rest when the time was right. The time is now." Apparently, Andrew flipped through her files again, stopped at a bank statement. "These wire transfers. They're not going to your father." "No, they're going to Hayes Medical Consulting. Christopher Hayes, security chief." "But really, he owns 40% of the company through shells. Can you prove that?" "My friend already did. Corporate filings. Delaware records. It's all documented." Andrew made notes. Fast, precise. "And your father?" "I don't know. I think Christopher's been forging his approvals, using his authority without his knowledge. That's a big claim, I know. But my stepmother is getting me proof. Email logs, server access records. Anything that shows Christopher operating independently." "Your stepmother. The woman who was on TV 2 days ago standing next to your father while he lied about your death, she's a victim too. Christopher is holding her daughter hostage in a fake rehab facility. To keep her compliant." Andrew stopped writing. Looked at her. "You realize how this sounds insane." "I know. But it's true." He tapped his pen against the notebook. Thinking, calculating, if I run this story, if I publish, Christopher Hayes will come after me, and you, and anyone else involved. These people have already killed. They won't hesitate to do it again, I know. And you're willing to risk that. I already am risking it. The question is whether you're willing to help me make it count." Andrew stared at her, long enough that she wanted to look away. But didn't, finally. "Your mother, Sarah Morrison, PhD in molecular biology. She worked for Whitmore Pharma. Yes, she died in 2018. Supposed suicide, murder, made to look like suicide, by Dr. Marcus Reed, who received $500,000 from Christopher Hayes over the following 6 months. You can prove that too?" Rebecca pulled out another file. Bank transfers. Highlighted, documented. Andrew took it. Read every page. His jaw tightened. Jesus. They killed her because she was going to report them, and my grandfather couldn't prove it. Not definitively. Not until he had everything. So he waited and collected. For 2 years, until cancer killed him first, and now you're finishing what they started. Yes, Andrew closed the files. Looked at her with something that might have been respect. "I'll help you. But on one condition." "What?" "We do this right. No shortcuts, no assumptions. Every single piece of evidence verified, cross-referenced, bulletproof. Because if we're going to take down a pharmaceutical company, we need to make sure they can't wriggle free." "How long will that take?" "A week. Maybe 2. Depends on how much your stepmother can get us. We don't have 2 weeks. Emily's still trapped, and the longer I stay dead, the more convinced Christopher becomes he's gotten away with it. Then we work fast." Andrew stood. "I'll need digital copies of everything. Encrypted. And I'll need to verify the patient records independently. Talk to survivors, get statements. I can help with that." "No, you stay hidden. You're our insurance policy. If something happens to me, you're still alive to tell the story." He shouldered his bag. "I'll be in touch. Through Michael. Don't contact me directly." He walked away, stopped at the elevator, turned back. "Your mother, Sarah. I met her once. at a medical ethics conference. She asked me about whistleblower protections. How to report safely, his face softened. I told her to document everything and go to the FBI. I didn't know. I didn't realize she was already in danger. She wouldn't want you to blame yourself, maybe. But I do anyway. The elevator dinged. Doors opened. I'll make sure the story gets told. One way or another. Donna delivered. 3 days later. USB drive. Encrypted. Mailed to Michael Palmer's office inside a package marked legal documents. Rebecca plugged it into her laptop. Kenneth watching over her shoulder. Thousands of files, mound chains, server logs, access records. And there, buried in metadata. Proof Christopher Hayes had accessed Jonathan's email account 247 times over 3 years. Had sent approval emails using his credentials. Had authorized payments Jonathan never saw more. Files showing Christopher had installed keyloggers on Jonathan's computer. Had mirrored his passwords. Had essentially operated as Jonathan for anything related to WT-47. Rebecca's hands shook as she read, "He built a shadow operation. Used my dad as a front. And Jonathan never knew." Kenneth peered at the screen. "This is fraud. Identity theft. Corporate espionage. It's more than that. It's evil." She scrolled through more files. Found voice recordings. Christopher talking to Dr. Reed. "The Morrison woman is a problem. She won't let this go. I can handle it. Same as the others. Make it look natural. Do it soon. Before she files with the FDA. Understood. Dated April 12, 2018. 2 days before Sarah died." Rebecca closed the laptop. Couldn't listen anymore. Kenneth put a hand on her shoulder. "You have what you need. Andrew can verify this. Can publish, but Emily is still trapped. And Donna is still under Christopher's control. So we move to the next part of the plan. We don't have a plan. Then we make one. Michael Palmer knew someone. Of course he did. Lawyers always knew someone. This someone was a former FBI agent. Retired. Living in Wyoming. Who specialized in private recovery services, which was code for extracting people from situations law enforcement couldn't touch. They met at a truck stop outside Cheyenne, the kind of place with diesel pumps and lot lizards and the smell of stale coffee. The woman introduced herself as Patricia. No last name. 60s, gray hair in a bun, eyes that had seen worse things than this. "Michael says you need someone extracted from Serenity Hills." Rebecca nodded. "Emily Fletcher, 22. Being held against her will. Held how? Christopher Hayes, head of security for Whitmore Pharma. He's using her as leverage against her mother. Says she's there for addiction treatment. But she's not an addict. Never was." Patricia pulled out a tablet. Typed, "Serenity Hills Recovery Center. Privately owned, isolated location, 24-hour security. And, interesting, owned by a subsidiary of Hayes Medical Consulting. He owns the prison he put her in. Smart. Legal, too. As long as Emily signed herself in voluntarily, she didn't have a choice. The court won't see it that way. Not without proof of coercion." Patricia zoomed in on a satellite image. "But if a concerned family member requested a welfare check, and if during that check, Emily expressed a desire to leave, well, legally they'd have to let her go. Will they actually do that? Not if Hayes has told them not to, but if we create enough chaos, enough witnesses, they won't have a choice." Kenneth leaned forward. "What kind of chaos?" Patricia smiled. "The legal kind. Michael files an emergency petition for welfare check, citing credible reports of unlawful detention. Judge grants it. Because judges don't like facilities that prevent family contact, and while the marshal is executing the check. A concerned friend, let's say, Rebecca here, happens to show up, and Emily, seeing someone she trusts, decides she wants to leave. That's barely legal, but it is legal. Which is what matters, Rebecca considered. What if Christopher has people there? What if they try to stop us? They can't, not without admitting they're holding her unlawfully. The moment they physically prevent her from leaving, they commit kidnapping, and that's federal, so we just walk in and walk out, more or less, but we need backup, in case they're stupid enough to try stopping us." Kenneth shifted. "I know some people, former rangers, law enforcement. They'd help," Patricia nodded. "Good. We'll need witnesses, cameras, everything documented. Make it impossible for Hayes to spin." Rebecca felt something loosen in her chest. "A plan, actual, concrete, when?" "Michael needs 48 hours to file the petition. Get the judge's order after that. We move. And Donna? What happens to her after we take Emily?" "She disappears, with her daughter, somewhere Hayes can't find them, and then she testifies against him. She'll do it, if Emily's safe." "She'll do anything," Patricia stood. "Then let's get started." Serenity Hills sat at the end of a gravel road, surrounded by Wyoming scrubland, single-story, adobe style. Looked more like a resort than a prison, until you noticed the security cameras, the reinforced doors, the bars hidden behind decorative screens. Rebecca sat in Patricia's SUV, watching. Waiting. The marshal had arrived 20 minutes ago. Federal vehicle, official business. They couldn't refuse entry. Michael was inside, with the court order. Kenneth and 3 others waited in a van down the road. Cameras ready. You nervous? Patricia kept her eyes on the building. Terrified. Good. Means you're taking this seriously. She checked her phone. Michael just texted. They're bringing Emily to the common room. She's, apparently, confused. Hasn't had outside contact in months. That's illegal, only if we can prove they prevented it. They'll say she refused visitors. Chose isolation. Rebecca's hands clenched. I'm going in, wait for the signal. What signal? When the marshal confirms Emily wants to leave. Then you walk in. Not before. 2 minutes. 5, 10, finally. Patricia's phone buzzed. Go. Rebecca got out, walked across the parking lot. Through the front doors, a receptionist stood. I'm sorry. Visiting hours are. I'm here to see Emily Fletcher. Federal welfare check in progress. The receptionist's face went white. I need to call my supervisor. Do that. Rebecca pushed past. Down a hallway, following voices, found them in a bright room. Large windows, comfortable furniture, trying so hard to look welcoming. Emily sat on a couch. Thin, too thin, hair lank. But alive, the marshal stood nearby, Michael beside him, and 2 facility staff members. Looking increasingly uncomfortable, Rebecca walked in. Emily looked up. Eyes widening, Rebecca? Oh my God, Mom said. She said you were dead. I'm not dead. And you're leaving. Right now, one of the staff members stepped forward. I'm afraid that's not possible. Miss Fletcher is here voluntarily. Under a treatment program, is that true? The marshal looked at Emily. Are you here voluntarily? Emily stood, shaking. No, I want to leave. I've wanted to leave for months, but they said if I tried, my mom would. That something bad would happen. Who said that? Mr. Hayes, Christopher Hayes. He visits sometimes. Make sure I understand the arrangement. The marshal's expression hardened. Ma'am, you're free to go, right now. If you choose, I choose. God, yes, I choose. The staff members looked at each other. Panicking, one pulled out a phone. I need to call our director. Call whoever you want. But you cannot legally detain her. The marshal gestured to Emily. Come on, let's get you out of here. They walked out. Rebecca beside Emily, Michael trailing. Patricia met them at the door with Kenneth and his crew. Cameras rolling, the director arrived. Shouting, threatening lawsuits, the marshal turned. Sir, you've been holding this woman against her will. That's kidnapping. Federal crime. I suggest you cooperate, or I'll have FBI here within the hour. The director went silent. They got Emily into Patricia's SUV. Drove. 3 miles down the road. Emily started crying. Real crying. The kind that came from months of fear finally breaking. Rebecca held her. Let her shake. Let her scream. You're safe. I promise. You're safe. Where's my mom? Waiting. We're taking you to her. And then what? And then you disappear. Both of you. Somewhere he can't find you. What about you? Rebecca looked out the window. At Wyoming turning into Montana. At mountains rising in the distance. I finished what my mother started. Donna met them at a safe house. Colorado border. Property owned by one of Kenneth's friends who asked no questions. Mother and daughter collapsed into each other, sobbing. Holding on like the world might rip them apart again. Rebecca stepped outside, gave them privacy. Patricia followed. That went better than expected. You think Christopher knows yet? Oh, he knows, and he's either coming after us. Or running. Depends how smart he is. What would you do? Patricia considered. If I'd killed 14 people and gotten away with it for years, and suddenly my leverage disappeared and my cover was blown, she lit a cigarette. I'd run. But I'd also burn every bridge behind me. Make sure no one could follow. Rebecca's phone buzzed. Andrew Sullivan. I'm ready to publish. 2 days. Front page. Digital and print. Every major outlet will pick it up within hours. Christopher's going to know it's coming. Let him know. Let him panic. Panicked men make mistakes, and my father? Silence then, Rebecca. The evidence shows he had some knowledge. Not everything, but enough that. He's going to face questions. Legal ones. Will he go to prison? I don't know. Depends on what he can prove he didn't know, and what he admits to knowing. She thought about Jonathan, about the man who'd read her bedtime stories, and the man who'd looked at her like a failed investment. Maybe people were both things. Maybe guilt wasn't binary. Publish it. All of it. Let the courts decide. You're sure? No, but do it anyway. Andrew ended the call. Patricia stubbed out her cigarette. You okay? I don't know what okay feels like anymore. Fair enough. She headed back inside. Come on, Donna wants to talk to you. Inside. Emily was asleep on the couch, exhausted. Donna sat in the kitchen, hands wrapped around coffee. She looked up when Rebecca entered. Thank you. For getting her out. I didn't believe anyone could. Patricia did most of it, but you organized it. You risked everything. Donna's eyes filled. I'm sorry. For standing there. While Jonathan lied. While they said you were dead. I wanted to scream. To tell everyone the truth. But Emily, I know, you don't have to explain. Jonathan's going to be arrested, isn't he? Maybe? Probably. I don't know, he loved your mother. Really loved her. When she died, something in him broke. And Christopher. Christopher filled that broken space, became the person Jonathan trusted, leaned on. Do you think Jonathan knew about the murders? Donna looked into her coffee. I think Jonathan knew something was wrong and chose not to know more. Because knowing would mean accepting what he'd allowed, what he'd been part of. Even if unknowingly, that doesn't excuse it. No, it doesn't. But it's the truth. She met Rebecca's eyes. I'll testify. Against Christopher. Against the company. Whatever you need. But I won't lie. Not about Jonathan. He's guilty of weakness. Of cowardice. But not murder, Rebecca nodded. That's all anyone can ask. The truth. Whatever it is, her phone buzzed again. Stephanie, turn on the news. Rebecca found the remote. Flipped channels there. Breaking news. Whitmore Pharmaceutical Solutions, under federal investigation. Multiple sources report allegations of fraudulent clinical trials resulting in patient deaths. CEO Jonathan Whitmore has been taken into custody for questioning. More details as they develop. Christopher Hayes' photo flashed on screen. Federal authorities are also seeking Christopher Hayes, Chief Security Officer. Considered a person of interest. If you have information regarding his whereabouts, please contact FBI. Rebecca felt something settle in her chest. Not relief, not satisfaction, just resolution. The truth was out. Imperfect, incomplete, but out. And whatever came next. At least it would be honest. Kenneth walked in. Looked at the screen. You did it. Actually did it. We're not done yet. Christopher's still out there. He won't get far. FBI doesn't like it when pharmaceutical executives flee. Yeah, but until he's caught. Donna and Emily aren't safe. Then they stay here. With us. Until it's over. Rebecca looked at the safe house. At the people who'd helped her. Risked for her. Strangers who'd become, what? Allies. Friends, family. The kind you chose, instead of the kind you were born into. Thank you. For everything, Kenneth shrugged. Your grandfather asked me to look out for you. I'm just keeping a promise. It's more than that. Yeah, it is. But we don't have to talk about it outside. Dawn was breaking. Pink light over the Rockies. Rebecca stepped onto the porch, breathed cold air, watched the world wake up somewhere. Christopher Hayes was running. Scared. Desperate somewhere. Jonathan Whitmore sat in an interrogation room, facing questions he'd avoided for years. And somewhere, Sarah Morrison's ghost could finally rest. The story wasn't over. But for the first time since her 18th birthday, Rebecca felt like she could breathe. The story broke at 6 a.m. Eastern. Andrew Sullivan's byline, front page digital, print edition hitting doorsteps across 23 states. Pharmaceutical giant, accused of systematic murder. Internal documents reveal 14 deaths covered up during illegal drug trials. Rebecca watched it spread. Retweets, shares, cable news picking it up within minutes. Her phone exploded with notifications even though nobody should have this number. Stephanie texted from a burner. You seeing this? Yeah, every major outlet is running it. CNN, MSNBC, Fox, even international. BBC, Reuters, good. Becca, this is massive. Your face is everywhere. Old photos from before you cut your hair. They're calling you the whistleblower who died and came back. Rebecca looked at the mirror. Blonde pixie cut, sunglasses, baseball cap. Didn't look anything like the girl in those photos. Let them look. They won't find me until I'm ready. And when's that? Soon Kenneth walked into the kitchen, poured coffee, looked at her with that steady Ranger calm. FBI called Michael. They want to talk to you, I know. You planning to actually do it? Eventually. But first I need to know where Christopher is. Patricia emerged from the back room. Phone pressed to her ear. Listening. Her face shifted. Something sharp. She ended the call. Christopher just tried to board a private jet. Teterboro Airport. New Jersey tried? FBI was waiting. He saw them. Ran. Last unseen into Manhattan on foot. Rebecca stood. He's going to ground or he's going to make one last play. Patricia pulled up a map on her tablet. If he's smart, he disappears into the city, uses cash, stays invisible, waits for the heat to die down, and if he's not smart, he goes after the people who can hurt him most. Rebecca's stomach dropped. Donna already moved her and Emily, new location, different state. Christopher doesn't know where. What about Jonathan? Federal custody. Downtown Denver. Christopher can't get to him. Then who? Patricia looked at her. You're the one who started this. Who has the files? Who convinced Donna to talk? You're the threat he needs to eliminate. But he thinks I'm dead, he did. Until this morning, when your name appeared in every newspaper in America. Credited as the primary source, Patricia zoomed in on Manhattan. If Christopher's as smart as his record suggests. He's already figured out where you'd go. I'm in Colorado. How would he know that? Because Michael Palmer's name is in the article. As your legal counsel. And Michael works out of Montana. And you have connections there. She tapped the screen. Christopher spent 12 years in private security. He knows how to find people, and he knows you're the only witness who can put him in prison for life. Kenneth set down his coffee. So what's the play? We use Rebecca as bait? Absolutely not. It's the only way to end this. Otherwise, he stays in the wind. Possibly for years. And you, Donna, Emily, anyone connected to this case. You all live looking over your shoulder. Rebecca thought about Emily, about the way she'd looked in that facility. Thin, broken. About Donna, who'd stood beside Jonathan and lied because she had no choice. About 14 patients who'd trusted doctors and died. About her mother who'd fought and been murdered for it. What do I need to do? The plan was stupid, reckless. Exactly the kind of thing that got people killed in bad movies, which was why it might work. Rebecca would return to Montana. To the ruins of Tom's cabin. The place Christopher had already burned once. The place he'd think she'd never go back to, and she'd make noise. Post on social media, use her real name, make it obvious. Patricia would coordinate with FBI, have agents nearby. Not close enough to spook Christopher, but close enough to respond, and when he came, because he would come, they'd be ready. Michael hated it. This is insane. You're making yourself a target. I already am a target. At least this way I control the location. FBI should handle this. FBI wants to arrest him for fraud and murder. I want to know why. Why my mother? Why those patients? Why he built this whole empire on corpses. Does the why matter? It matters to me. Kenneth volunteered to go with her. Patricia too. But Rebecca refused. If he sees anyone else, he'll know it's a trap. Has to be just me. Alone. Stupid enough to come back. You're not going alone. Kenneth's voice had that non-negotiable quality. Former law enforcement. Used to being obeyed. I'll be in the woods, where I've been tracking elk for 40 years. He won't see me, Kenneth. Not negotiable. Your grandfather asked me to protect you. I'm not stopping now, so... 2 days later, Rebecca stood in the ashes of Tom's cabin. Blackened timber, collapsed roof, the smell of burned pine still hanging in the air. She posted a photo. Instagram, Twitter. Her real accounts that had been dormant since the fire, standing where my grandfather's cabin used to be. Before someone burned it to hide the truth. But the truth doesn't burn. It just waits. Stephanie monitored the accounts remotely. That's... Jesus, Becca. That's a target painted on your back. That's the point. I hate this plan. Me too. If anything happens, it won't. Kenneth's here. FBI's 10 minutes away. And I have pepper spray. Pepper spray against a man who's killed 14 people. 15. He killed my mom too. Silence on the line then. Be careful. Please. I will. Rebecca ended the call, looked around. Pine forest. Mountains. The kind of isolation that felt peaceful until you remembered you were bait. Kenneth's voice crackled through the radio. I'm in position. 200 yards northeast. Can see the whole clearing. Copy. And Becca. If anything feels wrong, you run. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Just run. I know. I'm serious. This isn't a movie. You don't get to be brave and true to mud. Noted? She waited. Afternoon sun slanting through trees. Birds calling. Normal forest sounds. Until they stopped. The silence hit like a wall. No birds. No squirrels. Everything gone quiet. Rebecca's pulse kicked up. She touched the pepper spray in her pocket. A voice cut through the stillness. I have to admit, I didn't think you'd actually come back here. Christopher Hayes stepped out from the tree line. Expensive hiking clothes. Probably cost more than her car. But dirty. Rumpled. A man who'd been running. He didn't have a gun visible. But that didn't mean he wasn't armed. Rebecca forced herself to stay still. Didn't have much choice. You burned my home, not your home. Your grandfather's home. And yes, I did. Though I expected you to be inside at the time, he moved closer. Casual. Like they were having a normal conversation. Imagine my surprise when you turned up alive. And then, even more surprising, when you decided to destroy my company. Your company killed my mother. Your mother killed herself. The official report was very clear. The official report was written by Dr. Marcus Reed, who you paid $500,000. Christopher smiled. Cold. You've been digging. Tom taught you well. Tom taught me to see what's underneath. And underneath Whitmore Pharma is a pile of bodies. 14 bodies. Out of 43 trial participants. That's a 33% fatality rate, which sounds bad. Until you realize that all 43 were already dying. Chronic pain patients. Opioid addiction. Many with comorbidities, he shrugged. We gave them hope. A chance at a better treatment. Some didn't survive. That's the nature of medical trials. They didn't consent. You forged the paperwork. I streamlined the process. These were desperate people. They would have signed anything. That's not consent. That's exploitation. That's business. He took another step. Rebecca fought the urge to back up. Your mother understood that. Initially, she was brilliant, Sarah. PhD at 26. Revolutionary research in pain management. She could have changed the world. She tried to. By stopping you, she tried to destroy years of work because she got squeamish. Saw a few adverse events and suddenly developed a conscience. His voice hardened. Do you know how much money I invested in WT-47? How many doors I had to open? How many regulators I had to convince to look the other way? How many people you had to kill? I didn't kill anyone. Patients died. During trials. That's not murder. That's research. Rebecca's hands clenched. You murdered my mother. Your mother made a choice. She could have walked away, kept her mouth shut, lived comfortably on her salary and stock options. Instead, she threatened to go to the FDA. To destroy everything, he paused. So yes, I removed the threat. Same as I removed the 14 patients whose families asked too many questions. Kenneth's voice crackled in her ear. Hidden earpiece. FBI is 2 minutes out. Keep him talking. Christopher must have seen something in her face. His expression shifted. You're recording this. Or no. Someone's listening. He pulled a gun. Small, compact, probably a .380. Rebecca's hands went up. Wait, where are they? FBI? Local police? He scanned the tree line. Doesn't matter. You're the witness they need. Without you. It's all circumstantial. There are files. Documents. Andrew Sullivan published them. Documents can be challenged. Witnesses. Witnesses are harder to discredit. Unless they're dead. He raised the gun. A shot cracked through the forest. Christopher stumbled, looked down at his leg. Blood-spreading Kenneth emerged from the trees. Rifle raised. Drop it. Christopher swung his gun toward Kenneth. Rebecca didn't think. Just moved. Grabbed a piece of charred timber. Swung, connected with Christopher's wrist. The gun flew. Landed in the ash. Christopher lunged for it. Kenneth fired again. This time center mass. Christopher went down, clutching his chest. Blood between his fingers. FBI agents poured into the clearing, shouting, guns drawn. But it was over. Christopher Hayes lay in the ashes of the cabin he'd burned, dying the way he'd killed, violently. Suddenly, he looked at Rebecca. Blood on his lips. You think? This fixes anything? No, but it's a start, your father. About 2018, about the meeting. He knew, he just chose. To ignore, his eyes went blank, fixed. Gone? Rebecca stood, shaking. Kenneth's arm around her shoulders. You okay? No, but I will be. FBI descended. Questions, statements, procedures. And somewhere in the chaos, Rebecca thought, how many wrongs are waiting for someone brave enough to expose them? Infinite. Probably, but at least this one was done. Jonathan Whitmore sat across from Rebecca in a federal interview room. Denver field office. Concrete walls, fluorescent lights. The kind of space designed to break people. He looked smaller than she remembered. Older. Gray showing in his hair that hadn't been there 2 weeks ago. I didn't know you were alive until this morning. When the agents told me, I've been alive the whole time. While you stood on TV and lied, I thought. They told me you died in the fire. They told you I died because that's what they wanted you to believe. Rebecca leaned forward. Christopher controlled everything. Your emails, your signatures, your company, and you let him. I trusted him. You were weak. Jonathan flinched. Yes, I was weak. After your mother died, I couldn't function. Christopher stepped in, handled things, made decisions, and I let him. Because it was easier than facing what I'd lost. Mom didn't die. She was murdered. By Christopher. Because she found out about the illegal trials. I know. Rebecca's breath caught, you know? I figured it out. Later, too late, she came to me. In March 2018, said she'd found irregularities in the trial data. Said we needed to halt everything immediately. I told her we'd discuss it. That I needed time to review, and then you did nothing. I asked Christopher to look into it. To verify her claims, he said. He said it was a misunderstanding. That Sarah was under stress, that the data was fine. Jonathan's voice cracked, and I believed him. Because believing him meant I didn't have to choose between my wife and my company. So you chose the company, I chose denial, chose comfort. And 6 weeks later, Sarah was dead, and Christopher said it was suicide. And God help me, I believed that too, because the alternative. The alternative meant accepting that I'd killed her. By doing nothing, Rebecca felt tears threaten. Pushed them back. Did you know about the 14 patients? Not specifically. Not until after. I found discrepancies in the financial records. Payments that didn't match, I asked Christopher. He said they were legal settlements, families who'd sued. And I didn't push, didn't investigate, because I didn't want to know. People died, 14 people. And you looked the way. Yes, Jonathan met her eyes. I'm guilty. Not of murder, but of cowardice, of choosing ignorance over truth, and I will spend the rest of my life living with that. It makes you wonder how often we judge people too quickly. No, Rebecca rejected the thought. Jonathan deserved judgment, deserved consequences, but also, he was human, flawed, broken by grief, and manipulated by someone smarter and more ruthless. That didn't excuse what he'd done, but it explained it. The FBI is offering you a deal. Testify against Christopher's estate, against the company. Help them untangle the financial crimes. And you get what? Reduced charges, probation, community service, permanent ban from pharmaceutical industry, and I lose everything. The company, the assets. All of it goes to victim compensation, and you're taking it, yes, because it's what I should have done 6 years ago. When Sarah came to me, when I still had a choice, he looked at his hands. I know you won't forgive me, don't expect you to, but I am sorry, for all of it, for choosing wrong. For being weak when you needed me to be strong, Rebecca stood. I don't forgive you, not yet, maybe not ever, but I don't hate you either. You're just sad. A sad man who let fear control him. That's fair, and Jonathan. One more thing, yes? Stay away from me for a while, maybe forever. I can't look at you without seeing what you allowed to happen, he nodded. I understand, she walked out, left him in that gray room, alone with his guilt, which was probably the worst punishment anyway. Andrew Sullivan published follow-up pieces, patient testimonies, families of the deceased, 29 survivors willing to go on record. Rebecca traveled with him, met them, listened to their stories. Robert Williams, 67, Montana rancher, who'd trusted a doctor and nearly died from kidney failure. They told me it was safe. FDA approved. I didn't know. How could I know? His hand shook. Permanent nerve damage. My neighbor George, he took the same pills, died in his sleep. Heart just stopped. Mary Anderson, 52, Wyoming, single mother. 3 kids. I was desperate. The pain from the car accident. I couldn't work, couldn't function. They said this would help. Instead, I spent 6 months in ICU, liver failure, had to get a transplant, and the bills. God, the medical bills, story after story. People who'd been vulnerable, desperate, exploited, and Andrew documented everything. Built a case that went beyond fraud, that showed the human cost. The series won awards, Pulitzer consideration, but more importantly, it forced change, congressional hearings, new regulations, FDA overhaul, Whitmore Pharmaceutical Solutions dissolved, assets liquidated, every penny going to victim compensation, and Christopher Hayes, dead, but his crimes exposed. His empire destroyed, justice, imperfect, incomplete, but real. 3 months after Christopher died, Michael Palmer called, "There's something you need to see." From your grandfather, Rebecca drove to his office. Montana spring emerging, snow melting, green pushing through brown. Michael handed her an envelope. Thick, legal paper, sealed with red wax. This was in Tom's safety deposit box, with instructions, only to be opened after. After justice was served, Rebecca's hands shook as she broke the seal. Inside, a letter, handwritten. Tom's precise script, my dearest Rebecca. If you're reading this, it means you succeeded. Means the files I left you were enough. Means the truth came out. I wish I could have been there. Wish I could have seen you stand up to them. But cancer had other plans, so instead, I leave you this. The cabin wasn't just a hiding place for evidence. It was your mother's idea. Sarah came to me in February 2018, said she'd discovered the trials. Said Whitmore Pharma was killing people. She showed me everything, and we made a plan. She would file with the FDA. I would secure the evidence, in case anything happened to her. But, and this is important, this is what you need to know, Sarah knew they'd come for her. She wasn't naive, she understood the risk, and she did it anyway. Because some truths are worth dying for. She made me promise if she died, I would protect you, keep you safe until you were old enough, strong enough, to finish what she started. So I waited, collected more evidence, built the case, knowing that one day you'd be ready. And you were, you are. I'm so proud of you, prouder than I can express. You have your mother's courage, her conviction, her absolute refusal to accept injustice. The cabin is gone now. Probably. Christopher would have destroyed it, but the land remains. 20 acres of Montana wilderness. It's yours. Truly yours. Do with it what Sarah would have wanted. Build something good. Something that honors the people who died, the people who fought. I love you. Always. Always will, your grandfather. Tom Morrison. P.S. There's one more thing. In my will, beyond the cabin, I left you a trust. Not money, but something better. Connections. People I worked with in the FBI. Journalists, lawyers, activists. They're listed on the next page. If you ever need them, for this fight or the next, they'll help. Because there's always a next fight, and I have faith you'll be ready for it. Rebecca read the letter 3 times. Tears streaming, not sad tears. Grateful ones her mother had known, had chosen this path knowing it might kill her. And Tom had honored that choice, by protecting Rebecca, by giving her the tools to finish the work. She looked at Michael. The land. Where the cabin was. Can we build there? Of course. It's your property. I want to create something. A research station for wildlife biology, open to students, researchers, anyone studying environmental protection. That's a beautiful idea, and I want to name it after my mother. The Sarah Morrison Field Station, Michael smiled. She'd like that. 1 year later, Rebecca stood at the opening ceremony. 20 acres transformed, small research building, solar panels, water collection sustainable, respectful of the land, 50 people attended, students, professors, local community members, Kenneth and Michael, Patricia, Donna and Emily Andrew Sullivan, who'd traveled from New York to cover it, and in the back, sitting quietly. Jonathan Rebecca hadn't invited him, but she hadn't uninvited him either. He'd served his sentence. Probation, community service at a addiction recovery center, helping the people his company had harmed. He was trying, maybe, to be better than he'd been. She walked to the podium, looked at the faces, my mother, Sarah Morrison. Believed that truth mattered more than comfort, that protecting people was more important than protecting profit. She died for that belief, and for 6 years. That sacrifice seemed wasted, but it wasn't. Because she'd planted seeds, in my grandfather, in me, in everyone who knew what she'd fought for. And those seeds grew into this. A place where people can study, learn, protect the natural world. The way my mother tried to protect people. This station isn't just about wildlife. It's about responsibility. About choosing truth over convenience. About standing up, even when it costs you everything. Especially when it costs you everything. Applause. Warm. Genuine. The ribbon was cut. The building opened. Students began moving equipment. Setting up research stations. Rebecca walked the grounds. Found Kenneth leaning against a pine tree. Your grandfather would be proud. I hope so. I know so, he told me, before he died. Said you were going to do something important. Didn't know what. But he knew. Did he know about Mom? That she'd given him the files? He told me some. Not everything, but enough that I understood. This was bigger than one case, one company. This was about legacy. Rebecca looked at the research station, at students already exploring the forest, taking samples, documenting species, legacy. Yeah, I guess it is. Her phone buzzed. Email. Environmental lawyer, Oregon. Ms. Morrison, I know you're busy, but there's a situation, logging company, clear-cutting protected forest, poisoning water supply, affecting 3 towns. We have evidence, but we need someone who knows how to fight corporations, someone who's done it before. Would you consider consulting? Even just reviewing our case? Rebecca looked at the email, at the attached files, hundreds of pages, photos of devastated forest, chemical analysis of contaminated water. She thought about Tom's letter, about the list of contacts, about the next fight. She typed back, "Send me everything. I'll take a look." Kenneth read over her shoulder. "You're doing it again. Someone has to. Not arguing. Just be careful." "Always am, liar," she smiled, pocketed her phone, walked back to the ceremony because the work was never done. The fight's never finished. But for today, this moment, she could celebrate, could honor her mother, her grandfather, the 14 patients, the 29 survivors, could stand on land that held secrets and pain, and now, hope tomorrow she'd start the Oregon case, start fighting again, but today, she breathed mountain air, watched students learn, let herself feel. What? Peace, maybe, or, at least, the closest thing to it. Jonathan approached. Careful, hesitant Rebecca. "I thank you for letting me be here. I didn't let you. You came anyway. Still, it means, this place, what you've built. It's what Sarah would have wanted. I know, I'm sorry. I know I've said it before, but I'm sorry." For all of it, Rebecca looked at him, saw the man he'd been, the father who'd read her stories, and the man he'd become. Broken, trying, failing. Trying again, "I'm not ready to forgive you. Don't know if I ever will be, but I don't hate you anymore, and that's something. It's more than I deserve, probably." He nodded, walked away, back to his car, back to his small apartment and his small life and his very large regrets. And Rebecca let him go. Because some relationships couldn't be fixed, some trust couldn't be rebuilt, but also, people could change, could try to be better. Even if better never erased the past, she turned back to the station, to the students. To the future, Stephanie appeared, had driven from Colorado, brought a laptop and a bottle of champagne, so this is it. The legacy, part of it. What's the other part? Rebecca showed her the email. The Oregon case. Stephanie read it. Looked up. You're going to fight a logging corporation while running a research station, and probably dealing with PTSD from being almost murdered. When you say it like that, it sounds insane. Because it is insane, yeah. But it's also right. Stephanie hugged her. Tight. Have you ever experienced something like this? Losing everything and finding out it was the beginning instead of the end? Rebecca laughed. Is that your way of asking if I'm okay? Is there a good way to ask that? Probably not. But yeah, I'm okay. Better than okay. I'm purposeful, which is more than I had a year ago. They sat on the porch of the research building, watching sunset paint the mountains orange and gold. Rebecca thought about everything. The cabin burning, the files hidden, the confrontation with Christopher. Her mother's murder, Tom's sacrifice, Jonathan's weakness. The 14 patients who'd died and the 29 who'd survived. All of it leading here, to this moment. This place, she pulled out her phone, opened the email to Melissa. I'll help. When do we start? Because there was always a next fight. And she was ready. Have you ever had to choose between family and doing what's right? Rebecca had, and she'd chosen right, even when it shattered everything, even when it cost her the only family she'd known. But she'd found a new family. Kenneth, Michael, Patricia, Stephanie, Andrew, Donna and Emily, even, in a strange way, the survivors of WT-47, people bound not by blood, but by shared trauma, shared purpose, shared determination to make the world slightly less broken. And that was worth everything. The champagne opened with a pop. Stephanie poured. They raised glasses to Sarah Morrison, to Tom Morrison, to the 14, to Justice. They drank, watched stars emerge, listened to forest sounds, peaceful. Safe for now, tomorrow would bring new battles, new corporations to fight, new truths to expose. But tonight, Rebecca let herself rest, let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, individual courage mattered, that one person standing up could create ripples, could inspire others, could change systems that seemed unchangeable. Her phone buzzed again. Another email. This one from a former FBI agent on Tom's list. Heard about the Oregon case. Happy to consult. Your grandfather would be proud. Let's make him prouder. Rebecca smiled, pocketed the phone. Tomorrow, she'd read the Oregon files. Start planning. Start fighting. But tonight, she sat with her friend, drank champagne, celebrated her mother and grandfather and everyone who'd fought, everyone who'd refused to stay silent, everyone who'd chosen truth. Even when truth was dangerous, the research station lights glowed behind her. Students still working, still learning, still preparing to protect the world, and Rebecca Morrison, 19 years old, orphaned, disowned, hunted, nearly killed. Rebecca Morrison felt, finally, completely, purposefully, alive. Tell us in the comments. What would you fight for if you had the evidence? What truth would you risk everything to expose? And if this story moved you, share it. Because stories like this, true stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, they need to be told, they need to be heard, and they need to inspire the next person, the next whistleblower, the next truth teller, the next Rebecca Morrison, who's standing somewhere right now, holding evidence, scared, uncertain, wondering if speaking up is worth the cost. It is always, the cost of silence is always higher. Rebecca looked at the stars, at the mountains, at the forest her grandfather had protected for her, that her mother had died for, and she whispered to the wind, to the ghosts, to the memory of everyone who'd fought. I'll keep going. Promise. I won't stop, the wind whispered back. And somewhere, maybe. Sarah Morrison smiled.